This story begins with a schoolgirl almost getting crushed by a speeding truck. But suddenly, the protagonist, Yuma, pushes her out of harm's way, saving both her and her cat from getting flattened. Afterward, as they walk together, the girl scolds him, admitting that even though he saved her, his action was reckless. Scratching his head nervously, Yuma explains that his body just moved on its own and promises to be more careful next time. Meanwhile, in a faraway castle, a busty princess named Alfina dresses up to head out. But just then, her maid bursts into the room, announcing that the summoning circle is ready. Upon hearing this, Alfina gets excited at the thought of finally getting to meet her hero. But when the maid nervously asks if she is really sure about going through with the ritual, Alfina shouts, reminding her that the demon king will soon revive, and as the princess of the kingdom, it's her duty to summon the hero. Back in Japan, while sweeping the bathhouse where he works, Yuma suddenly sees a giant magical circle appear above the water. As he stares in shock at the terrifying sight, Princess Alfina and her maid Berth emerge from the magical circle. Yuma almost has brain damage seeing the hot chick, but Alfina just smiles, calls him her hero, and says they have finally come for him. As she descends, the clumsy princess tries to introduce herself, but suddenly she loses her balance and tumbles into the pool. Yuma panics and immediately jumps in after her, asking if she's okay. But as Alfina stands, Yuma quickly turns his virgin eyes away from her plots, realizing he can see through her drenched clothes. The princess blushes, confused by his reaction, until she looks down and realizes she is now an OnlyFans model. Even so, she shyly tries to continue with her introduction. But Yuma shouts in a panic that she might catch a cold like that. Moments later, in the laundry room, Alfina thanks Yuma for lending her such wonderful clothing. But Yuma awkwardly explains to the clueless princess that she's only wearing a bath towel and then hands her a proper cloth. Princess Alfina refuses to accept the cloth, saying the towel is enough and she doesn't want to trouble him further. Yuma doesn't argue, he just demands to know who they are and why they came. Alfina then apologizes for barging and bows politely, introducing herself as the first princess of the kingdom of Mervana, while her maid, Berth, also introduces herself. Still, Yuma wants to know what a princess wants with a nobody like him. Alfina then explains that she has been entrusted with the important duty of bringing the hero. Yuma still doesn't see what it has to do with him. But when Alfina asks if he is ready to come to her world, Yuma freezes, realizing this so-called hero the crazy girl is talking about is him. He quickly protests that he is just some plain-looking dude. But Berth shows him the Book of Prophecy, stating that every hero undergoes self-denial at first. Then she shows him a headshot of the last generation hero, and Yuma is stunned to see that the hero in this strange book is none other than his father. Even with all this proof, Yuma insists he's no bloody hero. So, as a final test, Alfina brings out the sacred stone. Lifting it into the air, she commands it to reveal the destined hero. Instantly, the glowing stone emits a beam of light that strikes Yuma's chest, marking him with a symbol. Now, with no more doubts, Alfina looks at him with flushed cheeks, asking if he is convinced now. But Yuma remains silent, still processing the situation. Growing frustrated, Princess Alfina throws herself at him, demanding a response. So Yuma panics and forcefully says he agrees. Excited, the desperate princess hugs him tightly, saying she is relieved, which causes Yuma to freak out even more. But while this chaos is ongoing, strange movement stirs in the bathhouse waters. As bubbles rise, a dark figure suddenly emerges from the pool. Before their very eyes, this figure takes shape into a girl with massive balloons. This girl introduces herself as Lavina and then mentions she's the demon lord for now. Nervously, Yuma steps forward to also introduce himself, but Princess Alfina immediately blocks his path, warning him to stay back. Then she angrily turns to face Lavina, firmly ordering her not to get any closer to Yuma. But Lavina refuses. She says she is talking to the demon lord and warns Alfina not to interrupt. Alfina immediately argues that Yuma is no demon lord, which makes Lavina burst into mocking laughter, calling Alfina a comedian, and then grabs her jiggly puffs to tease her. Alfina freaks out, but the nut job enjoys tormenting her. While at it, she mocks Alfina's chesticles as naughty distractions and then accuses her of trying to seduce the demon lord. The sight of Lavina toying with the princess makes Yuma panic. He quickly turns to Birth, demanding to know what in God's name is even going on. But even Birth admits she has no idea. Fed up with the chaos, Yuuma finally steps between the girls, demanding they stop with the freakiness. The little guy tells Lavina he's already the hero, and there's no way he can also be the demon lord. But Lavina disagrees instantly, insisting he's being deceived by the princess. As proof, the demon girl pulls out her own glowing crystal, which she proudly calls the Demon Lord Check. The moment she activates this crystal, a beam of light projects a mark on Yuuma's chest, proving she was right all along, which makes her laugh proudly. Princess Alfina gets intimidated by this, so she also brings out her crystal to prove once more that Yuuma is her hero. As she activates her own crystal, both her beam and Lavinda's beam strike Yuuma's chest at the same time, leaving everyone dumbfounded. This immediately sparks an argument between the girls about whose light is fake and whose is genuine, while Yuuma is completely lost in the madness. With both lights shining brightly on his chest, the little guy can't shake the feeling that something bad is about to happen. But the girls are too consumed in their arguments to pay him any attention, until suddenly an explosion occurs, blasting part of the roof away. This scares the heck out of the girls, so they cling to Yuuma while still arguing. Realizing she can't win this war with words, Alfina retreats a step backward and asks Birth for her sword, which the maid immediately hands over. Raising her blade high, the princess declares she will now use force. But before then, she blushes and awkwardly asks if she can put on some clothes first. Moments later, now dressed, Alfina announces that with her legendary sword, Seilun, every demon is vulnerable. Then she steps forward, insisting Lavina also draw her blade for the fight. Yuuma shouts in panic, asking if they really plan to fight inside the bathhouse. But before he gets any answer, Alfina charges and both girls are already going at each other. Yuuma quickly turns to Birth, begging her to stop the madness. But instead of intervening, the maid calmly pulls out a glowing orb and starts recording the princess in action. Yuuma is confused, unable to believe this maid chose to be the cameraman instead of stopping the crisis. Meanwhile, outside, Kana, the cheerful girl Yuuma saved earlier, approaches the bathhouse with food she prepared as a thank you gift. But the moment she steps inside, she's greeted by utter chaos. She sees Alfina and Lavina still locked in a heated battle. Shocked, Kana stumbles and nearly drops the food. Luckily, Yuuma rushes forward, catching both her and the food just in time. Then he steadies her, asking if she's okay. When Kana nods that she is, Yuuma immediately spins around, yelling at the girls to take their fight outside. Surprisingly, they agree, and the moment they leave, Yuuma hurriedly excuses himself, apologizing to Kana that he's in the middle of something before rushing out after them. Left behind, Kana sits on the floor in confusion, wondering what on earth is happening. Outside, Alfina and Lavina continue to fight each other. When they eventually pause for a second, Alfina dares Lavina to stop running and face her properly. Lavina smirks, promising an all-out offensive this time around. Upon hearing this, Yuuma gulps nervously from the sidelines, realizing nothing good can come from this all-out attack. He wants to stop them, but his body feels powerless. As the girls charge at each other to unleash their strongest strikes, Yuuma can't take it anymore. So the little man rushes forward, arms spread wide, shouting for them to stop. In the process of intervening, his hands accidentally slam against their balloons, freezing both girls mid-strike in shock. At that moment, a strange mark appears on Yuuma's hand, glowing with an intense light. As a result, Alfina and Lavina's clothes rip apart, and as the mark shines brighter, both girls pass out, landing right on top of Yuuma. Sometime later, inside the bathhouse, the two girls rest on futons, still unconscious. Yuuma sits nearby, feeling guilty, but Birth gently comforts him, assuring him that the princess and the acting demon lord must have simply collapsed from exhaustion. Relieved, Yuuma sighs, believing the girls must have drained themselves completely during the fight. But Birth quietly analyzes the situation. In her mind, she speculates that for Yuuma to drain both Alfina and Lavina of their power, the little guy must be far more mysterious than she realizes. Just then, Lavina wakes with a loud yawn. As she stands to greet Yuuma cheerfully, Yuuma instantly freaks out, seeing her massive plots, and shouts at her to put some clothes on. Lavina agrees, and in the blink of an eye, she magically summons clothes from hell. The result barely covers the essentials, leaving both Yuuma and Berth stunned. Looking around the bathhouse, Lavina accidentally spots a framed photo on the family altar. Curious, she steps closer and freezes in shock. When Yuuma explains that the lady in the picture is his late mother, who died in a car accident when he was a child, Lavina screams, revealing shocking news that the woman in the photo is none other than the former demon lord. Yuuma nearly has a heart attack, unable to believe that his dad was the former hero, and now his mother the former demon lord. Just then, a man with a stupid haircut steps into the bathhouse, grumbling about the hole in the ceiling and how the old owner would be pissed. Yuuma calls the guy dad and is shocked to see him. At the same time, the dad, Yuyuda, is equally shocked to see the strange girls in the bathhouse. The moment Berth notices him, she immediately bows politely, greeting him with respect. She introduces herself and the sleeping Princess Alfina, adding that it's an honor to meet the previous hero. But contrary to what Berth did, Lavina suddenly shouts, calling Yuuma's dad a demon kidnapper. Confused, Yuuma asks his dad why he's being accused of kidnapping demons, but his dad nervously waves it off, insisting he has no idea what the crazy girl is talking about. Before Yuuma can press further, Lavina suddenly grabs him, boldly declaring that if anyone's kidnapping today, it'll be her. But Alfina wakes and immediately shuts her down, saying she would do no such thing. As the girls start their usual drama, Yuuma anxiously turns to his dad, demanding an explanation for the whole craziness. Reluctantly, Yuyuda agrees to explain, so everyone sits at the table waiting for an explanation. To start, he hands Yuuma a book, explaining that it's based on his real-life experiences. As Yuuma flips through the pages, his dad begins sharing the story, how he fell in love with the demon lord from another world, and how the two of them were eventually sucked into another dimension that led them to Earth. But Berth immediately interrupts, correcting him. She explains that, according to popular belief, the hero and the demon lord both vanished into another world after the hero slew the demon lord. Hearing this, Yuuma's dad starts sweating nervously. Finally, he confesses that he never actually slew the demon lord at all. Instead, he ran away with her. Princess Alfina nearly loses her mind, demanding to know how a hero could stoop so low as to marry the very demon he was supposed to defeat. The dad, sweating nervously, then tries to defend himself, explaining that sometimes shared hardships can bring people together. Meanwhile, Berta thinks about it and reasons maybe it was planned all along. Fed up with his old man's lies, Yuuma insists his dad come clean and stop capping. Realizing he has been cornered, the dad then finally admits the truth. He reveals he got attracted to the demon lord because she was just his type. So after he rizzes her up, they decide to elope together. Yuuma explodes in disbelief, while Alfina looks like she just lost a few brain cells from hearing the confession. However, Berth stays calm and quietly questions if the so-called final battle between the hero and the demon lord was staged. Yuuma's dad admits it was, explaining how he made it look like he attacked the demon lord with his sacred sword, only to trick everyone while they both slipped away through a prearranged teleportation circle. Yuuma immediately explodes, furious at his old man's shameless simping. But his dad just shrugs and says he never stood a chance against the demon lords, Airbag 3000. Yuuma still cannot believe that his father gave up his mission as a hero just to become a milkman. But his dad yells, warning him not to belittle his mom's suckle engine. Berta, on the other hand, turns to Alfina, warning that the truth of Yuuma's bloodline must stay secret. Alfina agrees, admitting that even more now that it has been revealed that half of the guy's blood comes from the demon lord. Overhearing this, Lavina steps forward, insisting that if they don't want Yuuma because of his demon blood, then she'll gladly take him. But Alfina refuses, saying she will never give Yuuma up. Lavina refuses to back down. This time, she tempts Yuuma with her cosmic orbs, bragging that, just like the former hero, he too will simp hopelessly for them. Not wanting to be outshined, Alfina also boldly puts her own milk depot on display, claiming hers are far superior. Yuyuda then jumps into the argument, advising his son that when it comes to chesticles, bigger doesn't always mean better. This statement makes Princess Alfina start to cry, thinking the naughty daddy is calling her watermelon secondhand, and that she doesn't stand a chance against Lavina. Yuuma quickly intervenes, asking the princess to calm down and assuring her that, As a man of culture, he doesn't judge girls by their bust size. But his father fiercely disagrees, insisting that mommy milkers only come to those who truly admire them. Realizing Alfina won't give up, Lavina challenges her, asking what length she's willing to go for Yuma. Before Alfina can even say a word, the demon girl grabs Yuma's Dixon, bragging that she can make the guy feel really good, causing the poor guy to scream in shock. Desperate, the princess turns to her maid for help, asking what she can do to make the hero choose her. But Berth is completely lost in the whole frenzy happening. The demon girl then goes as far as sticking her hand inside Yuuma's shorts, and with a grin, vows that Yuuma is going to be hers. Yuuma screams in despair, realizing things have spiraled out of control. Seeing she doesn't stand a chance, Alfina then decides to use her trump card. She summons a secret magic into her palms and then also deeps her hand inside Yuuma's stink tank. Yuuma almost has a cardiac arrest as the girls continue to explore his unweeded vegetation. They both pin him to the floor while fighting for who will gain total control over the little guy's manaconda. Lavina insists Alfina leave it since she doesn't know how to use it, but Alfina disagrees, saying she will never allow her have it. While this is ongoing, Berth and Yuyuda choose to capture every bit of the special moment in 4K instead of intervening. Until suddenly, Kana innocently barges inside the bathhouse, curious to know what's happening, only to find Yuuma enjoying what most of the viewers only dream of. Yuuma panics and tries to explain that it's not what it looks like. But Kana bursts into tears and points dramatically at the food she brought earlier, asking if it's all about the dorayaki. The room falls silent as everyone wonders what the heck the girl is talking about. But Kana, still crying, accuses Yuuma of eating the delicious food behind her back. Her accusation makes Yuuma even more confused, but to please her, he offers his share of the food if her problem is food. Kana gets excited hearing this, so she hugs Yuuma and announces she will make tea for everyone. Meanwhile, in another part of the bathhouse, a scrawny old man storms in, and on seeing the damage on the roof, he gets furious. He wishes he could just see Yuuma at that moment, so he could strangle him for not cleaning up the mess. But while the old vegetable fumes, a strange ripple starts forming in the bathwater outside. From the portal, a mysterious lowly girl appears wearing a black cloak and announcing her arrival at her destination. Then she pulls out her weapon, coldly stating that her mission is simple: to eliminate the hero. Back inside, Alfina and Lavina wear delightful smiles as they enjoy eating dorayaki for the first time. Yuuma watches them, pleased to see the girls interacting as friends instead of bitter rivals, all thanks to Kana. But suddenly, a croaky voice interrupts the peaceful moment, angrily shouting Yuuma's name. It's Yuuma's slouching grandpa, stomping inside and accusing Yuuma of slacking off on chores again. Before Yuuma can explain that he was just about to clean up, the ceiling above creaks open, and a masked beast girl drops right in front of him. Yuuma stares in shock, demanding to know who she is. But the mysterious girl coldly locks eyes with him and declares she's found the hero. Then she pulls out her weapon, vowing to end him right there. In an instant, the girl leaps into the air, ready to strike. Luckily, Berth intercepts the attack, blocking the weapon skillfully, and quickly urges Yuuma to escape with the princess while she holds off the enemy. But the beast girl angrily warns Berth to stop interfering with her mission. Lavinia suddenly recognizes the assassin and calls her by the name Kakon, shocking everyone. Lavina then warns Kakon that the hero she is after is also the demon lord. But Kakon dismisses it as nonsense, insisting that Yuuma gives off the disgusting smell of the hero and her nose never lies. As Alfina counters, reminding everyone that Yuuma isn't the demon lord but the hero, the same old debate starts all over again, with Lavina shouting the opposite opinion. While the girls are distracted arguing, Kakon seizes the chance to strike. She snatches Yuuma like a toy and leaps straight out the window. By the time the girls notice it's already too late, the little guy has been abducted. Lavina immediately suggests they chase after them, and everyone agrees. Yuuma's dad, eager to see what happens next, tries to tag along, but the grandpa stops him with a chokehold, slamming him to the ground. The old geezer is furious that everyone is abandoning the bathhouse. So, grabbing Yuuma's dad by the collar, he drags him away, shouting that he's too old to be playing around with youngsters. On getting outside the bathhouse, The girls search the street but find no sign of Kakon or Yuuma. Just as they wonder what to do next, Kana spots her friend, Ruri, holding a popsicle and quickly asks if she's seen Yuuma. Ruri pauses to think, then casually mentions seeing a strange creature carrying Yuuma in its mouth like a hot dog, heading toward the nearest park. Hurriedly, Kana thanks the girl, and they all dash in that direction. At the park, Kakon grips Yuuma tightly and sniffs him, insisting he still smells like the hero. But then she blushes, saying he also carries the wonderful scent of the demon lord. Yuuma panics, asking what she's talking about, but Kakon simply explains that although she doesn't know what he truly is, she did realize something while sniffing him. Before Yuuma can question her further, the crazy girl unexpectedly strips to zero and says if he claps her, everything will be settled. Yuuma screams in horror, not believing the nonsense he's hearing. But Kakon asks him to chill, assuring him that her valley is deep enough to contain any missiles. But out of nowhere, a blade suddenly slices between them, interrupting the madness. With precision, Kakon leaps back, demanding to know who's there, and a voice replies, apologizing to Yuuma for coming late. As expected, it turns out to be Princess Alfina and the girls ready to defend Yuuma. Frustrated, Kakon threatens to eliminate Alfina and her colleagues for interfering with her goal. She immediately carries out the threat by attacking Alfina fiercely while Yuuma, watching from the sidelines, yells for them to stop, but neither listens. Desperate, he turns to Berth for help, but she shakes her head, explaining that it's impossible to stop the princess once she's entered battle mode. Left with no choice, Yuuma pleads with Lavina. At first, she admits it will be tough to take on the beast girl, but after a moment of thought, she says she knows a way, though she'll need his help. When Yuuma promises to do anything she asks, Lavinda winks, instructing him to fill her body with his magic. She explains that when the beast girl is in clapping mode, she will not stop until she's satisfied. So to stop her, they will need the demon lord's powerful magic to dispel her feelings. In simpler terms, Lavinda grabs Yuma's hands, saying they just need to show Kakon the power of their love. Yuuma, understanding what she means, blushes and grumbles that it's easier said than done. Lavina admits it's embarrassing for her too, but it's the only way to save everyone. For a brief second, Yuuma thinks about it and then agrees to go through with it. So he apologizes nervously before hugging Lavina from behind. Lavina smiles, saying he's cute, but then points out that they cannot accumulate magic that way. She forcefully takes hold of his hand, tells him not to hold back, and then strategically places his hand on her glizzy pillows. Yuuma shouts, unsure of what's happening, but at that instant, a sudden burst of energy erupts, tearing Lavina's clothes apart. Kana, watching, cannot believe what she's seeing, but Yuma advises her not to think too much, saying it's to save everyone. As Yuma continues to smooch Lavina's plots, the magic amplifies, radiating through her body. Kana cannot help but scream at the OnlyFans content and then covers her eyes not to behold the evil. After accumulating so much energy, Lavina finally reaches her peak, and the force of the magic explodes outward. Yuuma immediately screams at Alfina to move away from Kakon, and the moment she does, the impact of the blast sends Kakon flying miles into the distance. Later that evening, back at the bathhouse, Grandpa yells at Yuyuda, forcing him to fix the roof. Meanwhile, back inside, Alfina is shocked to see the very same beast girl they blasted earlier resting comfortably on Yuuma's lap. When she demands an explanation, Kakon calmly explains that since she failed her mission, she can't return home. Therefore, from now on, Yuuma's lap will be her permanent den. Alfina immediately protests, shouting that such twisted logic isn't going to fly. She then calls out to Lavina for backup, but Berth informs her that Lavina has gone to Kana's house for dinner. With no one to support her, Alfina angrily grabs Kakon, ordering her to get off Yuuma. But Kakon refuses, declaring that her body and soul now belong to him. The sun rises the following morning, but Yuuma is still fast asleep, drool dripping from his mouth as he snores without a care in the world. Just then, Princess Alfina and her maid enter the room, cheerfully greeting him with a good morning. But when Alfina notices that the drunk sloth is still completely out cold, she debates whether to wake him herself. Before she can act, however, she notices something moving under Yuuma's blanket. Curious, she pulls it back, only to find Kakon cuddling Yuuma as if he were the last man alive on the planet. The princess panics, shouting at the skinny beast girl to get off. But Kakon refuses, asking what crime she's being accused of, and then reminding her that Yuuma's body is her home now. Alfina disagrees, and chaos erupts with the princess trying to pull the beast girl away. In the middle of the struggle, the meat provider wakes up halfway, yawning and wondering why they're making so much noise. Alfina quickly claims it's nothing, forcing a sweet smile at Yuuma as she tries to regain her composure. Inwardly, though, she's fuming at the sight of Kakon clinging so tightly to him. Later that morning, while eating breakfast, Yuuma casually asks Alfina how long she plans on staying in his crib. Alfina immediately bursts into tears, asking if she's in his way. But Yuuma quickly clarifies that he's only concerned whether it's proper for a princess to live in his home. Alfina tells him not to worry, explaining that her dependable younger sister is handling things back in their kingdom. But to avoid any misunderstanding, Yuuma makes one thing clear: he has no intention of going to their world. Hearing this, Alfina is nearly in tears again as she tries to convince him. But Berth steps in, reminding Lavinia not to pressure him. Alfina tries to protest, but finally gives in with a reluctant nod. Shortly afterward, the princess suddenly remembers her other mission on Earth. Excited, she shouts that they need to retrieve the sacred sword. When Yuuma asks what she means, Alfina simply explains that his dad should be in possession of it. As they consider asking the dad, the guy walks into the room, so they immediately question him about the sword, but the old donkey says he somehow misplaced it. Yuuma's jaw drops in shock, while Lavinia nearly faints, wondering how something that important could possibly be lost. Still on the subject of retrieving things, Lavinia announces that they also need to recover the demon's sword. But Yuuma is already shouting at his dad, demanding to know why he so irresponsibly lost something that valuable. The dad man, sweating buckets, then tries to explain. He tells them that when he and his wife, the demon lord, first arrived through the portal, they came without clothes. He adds that he's even surprised the girls teleported with their clothes still on, which Berth quickly clarifies that teleportation techniques have improved since the boomer days. When Alfina asks what exactly happened to the sacred sword, Yuyuda admits that it probably just fell somewhere on Earth. While lounging casually, Lavinia points out that if the demon lord calls for the demon sword, it should respond. Alfina instantly buys into the idea and suggests that if the hero calls for the sacred sword, it should respond as well. But Yuyuda quickly tells them he and his wife had already tried that before, and it didn't work. Still, everyone turns to Yuuma, urging him to give it a second try. So, outside the bathhouse, Yuuma reluctantly agrees to the idea and starts with the demon sword. Excited, the girls cheer him on while nervously clutching their bet tickets. With his legs spread wide and his hand stretched forward, Yuuma shouts for the demon sword to appear. But the only thing that answers him is silence rivaling that of a graveyard. Lavinia bursts into mocking laughter, leaving Yuuma embarrassed about repeating the process for the sacred sword. But Alfina insists he has to. So this time he puts more energy into it and calls for the sacred sword. The result is the same grave silence, leaving the girls completely stunned. Meanwhile, inside the bathhouse, Kana brings lunch for everyone and is surprised to find the place empty. So she decides to check outside, but as she steps out, she trips with the lunch boxes in hand, causing a scare. Before she can hit the ground, a long black snake-like object catches her midair. Turns out Lavina used her clothes to wrap around her with ease. Yuuma panics at the sight of Lavina with no clothes on, while Alfina scolds her, saying it's disgraceful and insists she put her clothes back on. But Lavina, clearly enjoying the attention, just laughs and teases them. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom of Milvana, Princess Alfina's sister, Princess Lilifi, and her maid march toward the teleportation room. Panicking, one royal baldy begs her to reconsider, insisting there's no need for her to go to Earth since Berth always gives them periodic updates on the situation there. But Princess Lilifi refuses to listen. She declares that from the very start, she was against her elder sister going out into danger. The minister argues harder, saying it's even more dangerous for Lilifi, the second princess, to leave the kingdom unattended. But Lilifi holds firm, assuring him that their youngest sister, still in the kingdom, is capable of defending against demon skirmishes. As the minister tries to protest again, Lilifi makes it clear that she never agreed with the idea of depending on a hero from another world. To her, it makes no sense to entrust everything to an outsider. Standing in front of the teleportation room, Princess Lilifi makes a bold declaration. She will never let any hero take her elder sister away. With that said, she throws open the door wide, vowing to go to that other world herself and bring her sister back. Back at the bathhouse, Yuuma is busy cleaning and scrubbing the floor when suddenly a teleportation circle appears, shocking him. From the circle, Princess Lilifi and her maid emerge. Looking around the bathhouse, Lilifi wonders if her sister would be in such a place, until suddenly, she slips on the wet floor and almost falls. Luckily, the protagonist catches her just in time with his capable hands. When he asks if she is all right, Lilifi looks surprised and asks if he is a servant working in the bathhouse. Yuuma replies by introducing himself as Yuuma Tsugari, but before he can fully answer her question, the name Tsugari immediately alerts her. She asks if he happens to be the esteemed hero, and Yuuma replies that, according to Alfina's claim, that does seem to be the case. Hearing Yuuma mention her sister's name, Lilifi demands to know where Alfina is and asks to be taken there immediately. When they reach the living room, Alfina is stunned to see Lilifi and demands to know what the heck she is doing on Earth. Lilifi tells her she came to take her back to the kingdom, but Alfina is clearly upset about something else. She finally admits she's jealous that Lilifi got carried like a princess by Yuuma before she did. Ignoring her bratty tantrum, Lilifi cuts straight to the point, telling Alfina she must return to the kingdom. Alfina, with teary eyes, asks what will happen to the hero, and Lilifi replies, saying there's no need to bring him along. She insists that if they stand together as siblings, they can take down the Demon King. But while speaking, Lilifi suddenly notices Lavina and Kakon and nearly suffers instant paralysis. Furious, she turns to Alfina, demanding to know what the Demon King is doing there. Embarrassed, Alfina looks away, unable to explain, but Lilifi presses her for answers, insisting to know why she's being friendly with the enemy. Tense, Alfina blurts out a flimsy excuse, saying the situation is complicated and would take a week to explain. But Lilifi isn't buying it. Fed up, she immediately grabs Alfina's hand and starts dragging her away, insisting she must return with her. Yuuma is left confused about what to do, while Lavina and Kakon couldn't care less, casually wishing Alfina the best of luck. Alfina tries to convince Lilifi to change her mind, but Lilifi refuses to listen and keeps dragging her away. Yuuma finally speaks up against the use of force and suggests they sit and talk like civilized people. But Lilifi coldly warns him to mind his business and not to interfere in sister's issue. Wanting to stir more drama, Lavina cuts in, saying Yuuma has absolutely nothing to do with the matter because, after all, he is the Demon Lord. Lilifi is struck speechless hearing this and immediately starts cooking up nasty imaginations, believing Yuuma must have used his demonic powers to seduce her sister. Yuuma is shocked by how quickly she jumps to that conclusion. He tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but Lilifi refuses to hear a word and vows to avenge her sister. Even when Alfina begs her to stop fighting senselessly for her, Lilifi accuses her of being brainwashed by the Demon Lord. She then orders her maid, Platz, to hand her weapon. Platz obeys immediately, and Lilifi wastes no time drawing it against Yuuma. Meanwhile, Yuuma's dad, peeking at all the chaos, gets excited to see his son throw hands with the new girl. But unbeknownst to everyone, a lizard on the roof with some kind of camera strapped to its head is secretly spying on everything. Since the living room was too cramped, Lilifi decides to take the fight outside. Wasting no time, she tells Yuuma to ready his weapon, but Yuuma freezes, realizing he doesn't have one. Lavina then steps in to help by tossing her blade to him. Yuuma catches it, but when he complains about how dangerous it looks, Lavina assures him the sword only cuts what the user intends it to cut. As the duel is about to start, Alfina panics and warns Yuuma to be careful. She gives him a piece of advice. If he ever thought she was strong, then Lilifi is freakishly strong and will come at him with full force. Summoning 2 magic circles, Lilifi declares it's time for Yuuma to be judged, and before Yuuma can even ready himself, the princess charges at him at full speed. Yuuma panics, but by some universal luck he manages to deflect her strike. Not expecting the move he pulled, Yuuma is shocked at how amazing Lavina's sword is. but Lilifi immediately summons multiple magic circles, saying the first attack was just the appetizer and the real course is about to begin. Yuuma braces himself, clutching the sword nervously. From the circles, Lilifi unleashes a storm of magic blasts, but Yuuma slashes through every single one of them. Watching casually from the sidelines, Lavina advises Yuuma to go on the offensive before he gets caught by Lilifi's maximum magic. Meanwhile, Lilifi is already preparing a mighty magic circle above for her next attack. Seeing this, Yuuma panics, wondering how he's supposed to defend against it. But suddenly, an idea hits him. If he can break her staff, she shouldn't be able to use magic anymore. With that thought, the little guy charges forward with all his might, determined to snap Lilifi's staff in two. But as he rushes toward her, Lilifi freezes in shock, noticing the two glowing symbols on his hand and gets distracted. Yuuma then takes full advantage of the opening and strikes. After unleashing this brutal attack, Yuuma is confident the staff must be broken, while everyone else stares in shock at the unexpected move. But to his horror, Yuuma turns to see the staff still standing. He didn't break a thing except his own ego. Panicking, he turns to Lavina and demands to know what went wrong. Calmly, Lavina explains that everything worked exactly as expected. Since she had told him earlier that the blade only cuts what the user truly wants, the sword obeyed. Instead of slicing the staff, it shredded Lilifi's dress, because that's what his cultured mind secretly wished for. As a result, Lilifi's dress shatters, leaving her completely exposed. Everyone gasps in shock, but even with all her secrets out in the open, Lilifi refuses to accept defeat. She quickly orders Platz to do the needful, and Platz expertly tosses 3 white cards, perfectly covering Lilifi's sensitive parts. With that, Lilifi boldly readies herself to continue the duel. But Alfina immediately stops her, warning that it's indecent for her to fight in such a state. At first, Lilifi disagrees, insisting her body is an object to be worshipped. But when she finally regains her senses, she admits Alfina is right, and it will be embarrassing to let the demon lord ogle her fine body. Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, Alfina finally decides to clear things up, revealing to Lilifi that Yuuma is half hero and half demon. When Lilifi asks what that even means, Birth explains that Yuuma's dad was the former hero while his mom was the former demon lord. That's why Yuuma carries both the mark of the hero and the demon lord. Shortly after, inside the house, Lilifi reasons that since Yuuma only has half of the hero's power, there's no point in taking him to the kingdom. But Platz speaks up, telling her not to be too hasty. She suggests that it's possible for Yuuma to wield the full powers of both the hero and the demon lord rather than just half. Lilifi instantly agrees with this opinion, and immediately she grabs Yuuma, declaring that if that's the case, then the little man will be under her care. But her older sister immediately objects, saying she won't allow it. When Lilifi asks if Alfina plans to make babies with Yuuma, Alfina freaks out at the thought. Taking that as confirmation, Lilifi reminds her sister that, as the nation's first princess, she must devote herself to the kingdom alone. Then she boldly suggests that if anyone is going to make babies with Yuuma, it should be her. The second princess, Alfina, falls silent for a brief moment, clearly shaken by Lilifi's words. Then suddenly she bursts into tears, calling Lilifi a homewrecker, and then runs out of the house. Watching her sister's sudden outburst, Lilifi is surprised. It's the first time she has seen Alfina so upset. Still, she brushes it aside and kneels before Yuuma, asking him to take care of her. Yuuma is shocked by her weird request, while Lavina and Kakon immediately object, reminding Lilifi she doesn't get a free pass to claim Yuuma. Not wanting to start a needless conflict with the demon girls, Lilifi proposes they share Yuuma. A proposal Lavina instantly agrees and seals the deal with a handshake. Peeking from behind the door, Yuuma's dad is impressed by Lilifi's idea of sharing ownership with the demons. But Platz holds a different opinion, believing Lilifi only made that offer to gain an edge over her sister. Meanwhile, far away in the demon castle, everything happening in Yuuma's bathhouse is being watched through an orb by 5 demon generals seated around a round table. Disappointed, one general criticizes Kakon's failure to eliminate the hero, while another stresses the urgency of completing the task now that Lavina is still keeping an eye on Yuuma. As a solution, one female general suggests that one of them should personally travel to Earth to finish the job. She laments that if the fierce moon general were available, the mission would be much easier. But then a low-budget Optimus Prime, named Gradolio, volunteers to take on the task himself, and everyone agrees with no single objection. The next day, Alfina desperately begs Yuma not to abandon her. Yuma explains he's just going to school, but the princess calls him a liar, insisting he's only trying to get away from her. Still, Yuma refuses, saying he can't take her to school. Kakon also begs to accompany him, but Yuma turns her down as well. Just then, Kana arrives at the entrance dressed in her school uniform, reminding Yuma they're running late. When she peeks inside, she sees Alfina and Kakon clinging to Yuma like worms and finally understands why the guy is taking forever. Alfina and Kakon instantly get jealous when they realize Kana gets to accompany Yuma to school. But Kana nervously tells them there's nothing she can do about it. Suddenly, Lavina grabs Kana from behind and threatens to squeeze all the juice from her melons if she dares make a move on Yuma. Kana freezes in fear, unable to react, until Yuma orders Lavina to stop teasing her and suggests they leave for school immediately. That morning, once they arrive at school, Kana breathes heavily in relief, glad they barely escaped from the crazy girls, while Yuma silently hopes they never have to go through that every day. Just then, two of Kana's friends, Ruri and Reika, approach to greet them. Yuma shyly returns the greeting, but Ruri insists he greet her as warmly as he greets Kana. Yuma explains that he and Kana have been friends forever, so he's just used to treating her that way. Later that day in class, Yuma suddenly starts hearing a strange voice in his head calling him the hero. He panics, realizing someone is trying to contact him through telepathy. When the mysterious voice tells him to go to the school roof alone, Yuma obeys, eager to see the face behind the voice. Meanwhile, back at the bathhouse, Berth and Platz help the old grandpa clean up the place as payment for letting them use the facility. They even offer to stroke his old meat to show their appreciation, which makes Yuma dad extremely jealous. Back at school, Yuma finally reaches the rooftop and almost pees himself when he realizes the strange voice belongs to none other than the fearsome Gradolio. After introducing himself as one of the 6 demon lords, Gradolio stabs the ground with his massive blade, creating a barrier where they can fight without interference. Terrified, Yuma panics and begs to just go back to class. But Gradolio raises his huge sword high, then slams it down, threatening to end Yuma's life with a single blow. As the demon general swings at him, Ruri suddenly appears out of nowhere to defend the helpless protagonist. She tells Yuma that since she's risking her neck to save him, he better start treating her more kindly. Yuma is left speechless, but Gradolio instantly recognizes Ruri as Rurigati, the Moon General. It's revealed that Ruri was once Rurigati the demon, who, after being defeated by the former hero, reincarnated as a human and ended up on Earth. When Gradolio demands to know why she has chosen to ally herself with the hero now, Ruri smirks like a lunatic and says she doesn't care about allies or enemies. She only does whatever makes her happy. Her answer infuriates Gradolio, who unleashes his full strength against her, not holding back even though she used to be the strongest of all the demon generals. The massive demon overwhelms Ruri and slams her into the ground. Yuma panics, but Ruri quickly gets back up. She glares at Yuma and warns him not to stand around like a dummy, but to quickly call for the sacred sword before they both drift off to the great beyond. Yuma nervously admits that the last time he tried to summon the sacred sword, nothing happened. Shocked, Ruri demands to know what the heck he's talking about, and then reveals that the sacred sword has been by his side all along. Yuma is confused by her words, but he decides to try summoning the sword again. As he stretches out his hand to call for the sacred sword, somewhere in the school corridor, Kana hears Yuma's voice faintly calling her. So she traces his voice to the rooftop, and when she gets there, she is shocked to see Ruri fighting a huge opponent. Surprised to see her, Yuma asks what she's doing up there, and Kana explains that she felt like he was calling her, so she followed the sound of his voice. Yuma can hardly believe Kana is the sacred sword he has just summoned, but Ruri tells him he'd better believe it, and then orders him to hurriedly pull out the sacred sword from her. Gradolio overhears their talk about the sacred sword and immediately lunges at Yuma before he can pull out anything. but Ruri quickly intercepts, warning him not to get distracted. Meanwhile, Kana has no clue what sword everyone is talking about pulling out of her. So Ruri explains to the clueless girl that her watermelon chest wasn't just given to her for nothing. Hearing this, Kana finally figures these guys are talking about pulling out the sacred sword from deep inside her dumplings. Since the sacred sword is buried deep inside Kana's body, Yuuma reasons that the only way to get it out must be by massaging her oranges. At first, he finds the idea ridiculous and thinks about dismissing it, but then he hardens his resolve, realizing it's their only option. Kana also admits they don't have another choice, so together they agree to give it a try. As Kana braces herself, begging Yuuma to be gentle, Yuuma gulps nervously before grabbing her twin mountains. The moment he squeezes, Kana sings like an angel. Then suddenly, her school uniform bursts apart under the massive heat, but Yuuma refuses to stop until the enormous sacred sword finally starts emerging from her. Yuuma stares in shock at the legendary weapon, but Ruri snaps at him to quit staring and grab it. The moment Yuuma pulls the weapon from Kana, she collapses and loses consciousness. Yuuma quickly carries her over and gently lays her on the floor before turning to face Gradolio. Even with the sacred sword before him, the mighty demon lord mocks Yuuma, saying he still won't be able to do anything. But Yuuma shuts his eyes, trying to focus. All he can think of are Lavina's words from earlier, that legendary weapons can only cut through what he wills them to. As he balances himself to do exactly just that, the hero mark on his hand starts to glow, causing the sacred sword to emit a fiery aura. Slicing through the air, Yuuma strikes the sacred sword while fiercely commanding the blade to cut. The impact of the strike sends Gradolio staggering backwards, and in the blink of an eye, his massive armor is completely destroyed, split clean down the middle. Watching his Goliath opponent fall, Yuuma panics, wondering if he actually murdered someone, but Ruri tells him to relax and points him forward. When Yuuma looks, he freezes in shock. Sitting on the floor in tears, using a broken piece of armor to cover her head, is a girl with moderate plots. When Yuuma asks who this strange girl is, Ruri reveals she is Gradolio without the massive armor. With everything now back to normal, Yuuma suggests they quickly do something about Kana and Gradolio's exposed features. Ruri then agrees to handle the Gradolio's magic armor, but pushes the task of dealing with the girls onto Yuuma. Yuuma freaks out, reminding Ruri that they have to do something about the girls' clothes or else they can't get off the roof. Desperate, he blurts out the idea of stripping with the girls so it won't look suspicious, but Ruri sighs and tells him the heat must be frying his brain. To help, Ruri then pulls out a small round object, calling it her battle suit, and hands it to Gradolio. The moment Gradolio touches it, the object unfurls with a pop and transforms into a bunny suit that barely covers her plots. Yuuma calls it a stripper outfit, mentioning that Gradolio can't possibly walk into school dressed like that. But Ruri shuts him down, reminding him that beggars can't be choosers. That aside, Yuuma starts worrying about what to do with the sacred sword, since he can't exactly carry it into class. He reasons it would be best to put it away, but has no idea how. In a panic, he even tries shoving it back into Kana's chest, but Ruri warns him that doing so would just send the poor girl straight to the afterlife. Tensed and uncertain, Kana starts shaking the sword when suddenly a bright light starts emanating from it, and in a flash the weapon vanishes from his hand. At that exact moment, Kana wakes from her deep slumber, confused and embarrassed to find herself without clothes. Meanwhile, in class, Reika receives a message informing her of Kana's predicament and asking her to bring clothes to the rooftop. She's surprised at first, but eventually agrees. Back on the rooftop, Yuuma is still bothered by Gradolio's stripper outfit, when Gradolio suggests taking it off completely since she's never been comfortable wearing clothes anyway. But Yuuma instantly panics, screaming for her not to do that, and begs Ruri to somehow give her a magical makeover. However, Ruri explains that even though the outfit looks inappropriate, to the average person it will appear normal thanks to its camouflage ability. That explanation brings Yuuma some relief, but Gradolio suddenly insists that since she lost the duel, she doesn't deserve clothes at all, only death by driving her own horns through her chest. Later that day at home, Yuma's dad is surprised to see his son has added yet another chick to his harem. When he asks who she is, Yuuma just says it's a long story. After taking a bath, Lavina and Kakon rush in excitedly, but Lavina freezes the moment she spots Gradolio. Demanding answers, she asks why Gradolio is on Earth. Instantly, Gradolio drops to her knees, begging for forgiveness for failing her mission. Instead of getting angry, Lavina casually jokes that Yuuma's charm must have gotten to her, which Gradolio sadly admits is true. Kakon also tries to cheer her up, getting up close and personal, but she recoils the moment she realizes Gradolio smells worse than a skunk behind. Hearing that while already feeling pathetic, Gradolio bursts into tears, insisting she wants to die because she's too smelly to live. Suddenly, Alfina storms into the room, fuming that she'll never allow one of the 6 demon generals anywhere near Yuuma. She demands they send Gradolio back to the sewer she crawled out of. But after Kakon points out how unfair it is that the hero side has 4 people in the house, including the maids, while the demon side only has 3, Alfina reluctantly admits she's right and agrees to let Gradolio stay. Meanwhile, in the other world, inside the demon castle, a horned general is furious that Gradolio not only failed her mission, but also helped the hero awaken the sacred sword. With every plan to eliminate the hero falling apart, he suggests to the round table that they should all teleport to Earth. But another female general dismisses his idea, warning him not to act rashly. Suddenly, the meeting is interrupted by a demon girl with spiked hair and teeth sharp enough to grind stone. She mocks them all, calling them a bunch of losers. Moments later, a loud explosion shakes the halls outside the general's chamber. Demon guards rush in to check what happened, only to find the spiked girl calmly sitting on the corpses of the 6 demon generals. Coldly, she declares that her mission is simple: to waste the hero. At the bathhouse, Yuuma plays a game where the hero wanders around picking up random items. Alfina watches curiously, impressed by how easily he plays, but confused as to why the hero is allowed to enter villagers' homes and take whatever he pleases. Yuuma tries explaining that this is how most games work, but Alfina immediately assumes it must be a hero's privilege, saving the world in exchange for the right to take whatever they want. She starts thinking about all the things she left behind at her castle. The only items she remembers actually owning legally are her numerous Victoria's Secret peach covers. Since she doesn't have them here on Earth, she takes off the one she's currently wearing and offers it to Yuuma as payment for saving her kingdom. Yuuma, baffled at why she's handing him her plot armor, loudly refuses. Later, Birth approaches Yuuma to beg forgiveness for the princess's strange behavior. Yuuma tells her it's fine, that he understands their thinking since they're not from Earth. But when Birth also removes her undergarment and hands it to him as tribute for his heroism, Yuuma explodes, asking if the world they came from has any sense of decency at all. Meanwhile, in the sitting room, the 2 demon girls are glued to a ridiculous show about an ugly governor with a mohawk and a ninja destined to take him out. They're fascinated, especially with the ninja's costume, and decide to recreate the drama for Yuuma. Later that day, Lavina then shows Yuuma a fancy kimono that enhances her bust. When Yuuma compliments her outfit, saying it looks nice, Lavina hands him a sash. In the blink of an eye, the kimono slips away, leaving her bare. As part of the act, she pounces on Yuuma, calling him governor and insisting he do as he pleases. Yuuma panics, trying to push her away, but the more he struggles, the harder his head presses into Lavina's chest. To make matters worse, Kakon joins in, and together they sandwich him, insisting they want to teach him the art of lovemaking. That was the final straw. Thanks to the effects of television on the girls, television viewing was officially banned in the bathhouse from that day onward. Several days later, Princess Alfina and Lavina are about to throw hands over who should stay closer to Yuuma. But just as the tension peaks, Lilifi steps in, declaring that enough is enough and proudly announcing that she made breakfast for everyone. Yuuma is shocked that she actually cooked, but Lilifi explains that as a royal, it's important to set a good example. Everyone perks up at the thought of food and rushes toward the dining area. But suddenly, Gradolio pops out of the closet, timidly asking if it's okay for her to eat too. Yuuma nearly jumps out of his skin and demands to know why she was in there. Gradolio then explains that Kakon told her a worthless freeloader like her deserves to stay inside the closet. When Yuuma asks how long she's been in there, Gradolio casually replies that it's been ever since she arrived. She admits she actually likes it in there, but Yuuma asks her to come out. As they all head to the dining area, Lavender excuses herself, saying she needs to take a leak, and then slips into the toilet. Once inside, she receives a telepathic message from a demon in the demon world, warning her about the impending arrival of an evil dragon demon known as Karina. Lavender isn't pleased to hear this, but she thanks the messenger and then makes her way back to the dining area to rejoin the others. Everyone finally gathers around the table to enjoy the meal Lilifi prepared, everyone except Yuuma and Kakon, who join a little later. Yuuma is served his share of rice and Milo soup, but just as he's about to dig in, something strange suddenly alerts him. Lilifi notices his sudden distraction and asks what's wrong, but Yuuma quickly bolts outside, promising to be back soon. Stepping outside the house, Yuuma is speechless as he spots a massive teleportation circle glowing above the roof. Even from inside, the girls notice it through the windows and can't believe their eyes. Suddenly, giant clawed feet emerge from the circle, followed by enormous wings and then a long tail. Before their eyes, a dark, terrifying dragon with glowing eyes then finally emerges from the magic circle and starts glaring down at them with malicious intent. Before anyone can react, the dragon charges straight at them but halts midway as it looms over Yuuma. As the creature draws closer, Yuuma sees his entire life flash before his eyes, but after a long, tense silence, the dragon finally speaks. She calls Yuuma the hero and apologizes for the intrusion. Yuuma is stunned that the dragon can talk, though what shocks him even more is that everyone else, including his old man, already knew dragons could talk. The dragon then introduces herself as Maruran of the Sacred Dragon Clan, then asks if Karina of the Demon Dragon Clan has already arrived. At the mention of the Demon Dragon Clan, Princess Alfina instantly panics. When Yuuma asks what that means, Alfina gives him the rundown of dragon history. Some dragons coexist peacefully with humans and demons alike, while others ally with demons to destroy. Among the latter, Karina's savagery is unmatched. Even demons fear her. Sensing an opportunity to get rid of Alfina, Lilifi loudly announces that Karina's arrival is an emergency and suggests Alfina immediately leave Earth and never return. But Alfina Neros can already see through her desperation. Meanwhile, a restaurant downtown is in chaos as a maniac chews on plates, terrifying the customers watching from their seats. That maniac turns out to be the spiky-haired girl with dagger-like teeth named Karina, who casually asks the waiter to bring her more bowls of pork cutlets. The elderly waitress, surprised the crazy girl is still making orders, asks if she can even handle that much food. Karina smirks, telling her not to worry, bragging that she has plenty of money. When the waitress explains she was referring to her stomach, Karina only laughs louder and assures her that she has a cast-iron tummy that can handle anything. A curious man, noticing Karina doesn't seem to be from around here, asks if she came for sightseeing. With bold confidence, Karina replies that she actually came to take someone out, but somehow lost track of them. Back at the restaurant, Karina finds herself in a mess, apologizing to the owner after her gold coins are rejected as payment. She begs for hours, but the owner refuses to let her off and insists on holding onto her bags instead. Realizing she's cooked, Karina then offers to arch her back as a form of payment. The guys in the restaurant start cheering for the old shop owner to take the offer, even promising not to snitch to his wife. But while all this noise goes on, a man in dark shades and a black suit sits quietly at the back, watching. When things finally calm down, he approaches Karina with what he calls the perfect job offer. Meanwhile, back at the bathhouse, Maruran warns that even though Karina isn't there yet, she's definitely on her way. When Alfina asks if anything can be done before Karina arrives, Lilifi suggests they stay put, since searching for her would only make things worse. In the meantime, Yuma's dad suggests they relax and finish breakfast before it gets cold, and everyone agrees. Before heading back inside, Lilifi invites Maruran to join them, which surprises the dragon. Excited, Maruran admits the food looks delicious and says she can't wait to dig in. But when she gets ordered to spit Kakon out, Maruran does so immediately and then apologizes, saying it's only because Kakon looked so yummy. After breakfast that morning, Kana drops by the house so she and Yuuma can head to school. So before leaving, Yuuma says goodbye to everyone, hoping things will be fine when he gets back. The girls, on the other hand, decide to take a bath in the tub. But before that, Lilifi asks Maruran to change her form, explaining that her dragon body isn't acceptable. Maruran agrees, and with a blinding flash of light, she transforms into a pretty girl with wings and a tail. After the transformation, Maruran asks if she can join them in the bath. Kakon panics, convinced it's just a trick so the dragon girl can eat her again. But Maruran promises to behave, even though Kakon still looks tempting. Not buying it, Kakon tells Gradolio to bathe with them as a sacrifice, just in case the dragon decides to break her promise. Meanwhile, on their way to school, Yuuma suddenly remembers he forgot to tell his dad about the sacred sword he pulled out of Kana. Hearing this, Kana instantly freaks out as her mind replays all the embarrassing things Yuuma did to her just to pull the sword from deep inside her, making her feel like such a naughty girl. With the sacred sword now in his possession, Yuuma drifts into deep thought, wondering where the demon sword could be. Back at the bathhouse, the dragon girl is living her best life in the tub, while Kakon and Gradolio keep their distance to avoid being eaten. Noticing their fear, Maruran asks them to relax, reassuring them she has no intention of eating anyone. But Kakon still keeps her guard up, saying it's better to be safe than sorry. Still eager for death, Gradolio offers herself up to be eaten, but Maruran bluntly refuses, saying she looks unappetizing. Following that, the girls decide to have some fun while bathing until the old caretaker knocks on the bathroom door, reminding them that they need to leave since business is about to open. But just then, the old man is startled when he begins to hear strange sounds coming from inside. As he wonders what the heck is going on behind the door, he decides to check. But the moment he opens it, Birth immediately covers his eyes to stop him from seeing anything that could spike his hypertension. Meanwhile, in a separate tub, Lilifi asks Lavina to find a way to settle things with Karina. But Lavina tells her it's impossible, admitting that Karina doesn't even listen to her. Then suddenly, Lavina gets an idea. Since the sacred dragon is already on Earth, they could pit her against Karina. When Lilifi asks if that will really resolve things, Lavina admits she's still doubtful about the plan. Overhearing their conversation, Yuma's dad assures them that if push comes to shove, Yuuma will deal with the situation. But when Lilifi points out that Yuuma isn't ready yet, the dad proudly tells her not to sell his son short. Meanwhile, at a school, Karina's job is to take care of the little ones, and she loves it. When asked if she can handle more brats since most of the teachers are out with a cold, Karina says it's no problem, bragging that she could wrangle a pack of rugrats in her sleep. Sometime later, one brat slowly walks up to her with a sad face. When she asks what's wrong, the little guy pulls out a flower and proposes marriage. Karina pats his head and gently turns him down, saying she's only interested in tough guys. Still with a grin, she assures him that if he grows up big and strong, she might think about it. Hours later, back at the house, Maruran is now properly dressed for a formal introduction and shares a little bit about herself with everyone. She makes it clear that she's not leaving the house until Karina arrives. She also shows them her food magazine, and the girls are stunned to realize that the dragon girl is a foodie. As part of her plan, Lavina suggests Maruran take a walk around the area to scout for Karina, but Maruran points out that she's not too familiar with the place. When Lavina suggests Kakon as her guide, Kakon loses her mind at the thought of being alone with the dragon girl. To help, the maid girls decide to accompany Maruran instead, which makes Kakon really excited. Meanwhile, at school, Ruri walks up to Yuuma, saying she needs to have a word with him and suggests they go to the rooftop. Once there, Yuuma immediately assumes Ruri wants to talk about her borrowed suit. Ruri replies that it's part of it, but then she tosses him a black ball. When Yuuma asks what it is, Ruri explains that it's Gradolia's magic armor that she managed to salvage. Yuuma thanks her, promising to pass it on to Gradolio, but then mentions he has something to ask her. With a seductive look, Ruri assures him she'll answer only if it's a dirty question. Still, Yuuma asks anyway. He wants to know if she knows who holds the demon sword. Since Kana carries the sacred sword and he had to play with her jiggly weapons to pull it out, Yuuma brilliantly assumes that another girl with big dumplings must have the demon sword. Before Ruri can respond, Reika, one of Kana's friends, suddenly interrupts as she casually strolls onto the rooftop. When Yuuma asks if she overheard their conversation, Reika stays silent like a dummy. Then she takes a few steps, looks up, and randomly starts talking about how the sky is blue. Meanwhile, at the daycare, the day comes to an end with parents arriving to pick up their brats. With all the little ones gone, Karina heads out, but the daycare owner stops her. He compliments how good she is with the kids and asks if she'll be showing up the next day. But Karina turns down his offer, saying she has other stuff to do. While they talk, a black cat watches with keen interest. At the same time, Maruran and the maids arrive at the grocery store for food sampling. After trying a bunch of different foods, the maids suggest heading back, but Maruran insists on staying. Suddenly, some brats decide to cause trouble. They sprint past the maids, aiming for Maruran, but stop dead in their tracks when they see her dragon tail. Terrified, they bolt away screaming that she's a monster. Meanwhile, in a dark alley, a little blonde girl named Ina searches for her black cat. When she finally finds it, she notices it's being held hostage by Karina for snooping around and spying on her. When Karina asks the girl if Lavina had sent her, Ina says yes. But to be sure, Karina activates her dragon eyes, which allow her to see through lies, and calls the girl a liar. She accuses her of working with the hero and raises an enormous container, threatening to slam it down if Ina doesn't reveal exactly where the hero is. Just then, Yuuma's dad, casually strolling through the alley, happens to interrupt the scene and tells Ina to quickly escape. Karina, furious at being interrupted, prepares to teach him a hard lesson. But out of nowhere, Yuyuda summons a spear and steps forward to face her, while Karina grins at the challenge, saying this ought to be good. Karina quickly recognizes Yuyuda as the former hero and vows to avenge her father by beating the crap out of him. But before the fight begins, Yuyuda tells her to chill and suggests they move somewhere more secluded. Surprisingly, Karina agrees. Meanwhile, as Yuuma and Kana head home after school, they bump into the little blonde girl Ina, who immediately hugs Yuma while crying. Concerned, Yuuma asks her what's wrong. Through her tears, Ina explains that his father is facing off against a scary woman who reminds her of a dragon. The moment Yuuma hears this, he panics, realizing that the scary dragon woman must be Karina. Arriving at an abandoned warehouse, Yuyuda tells Karina that since they're fighting there, they don't need to bother with barriers. Then he winks at her, asking if she can go easy on an old hero like him. Without wasting time, Karina summons her dragon hands and attacks, but Yuyuda blocks her powerful strike with his spear while still laughing. His cockiness almost costs him his face as her fist comes dangerously close, but he narrowly dodges and counters with a low kick that forces Karina to retreat. Still, Karina refuses to back down. She charges again at incredible speed, but in her anger she loses control and Yuyuda's strike lands clean on her face, sending her crashing to the ground. The impact triggers a flashback, memories of when she was weak and helpless as a young girl, but she swore never to feel that way again. Fueled by that resolve, Karina rises to her feet and unleashes her dragon humanoid form. Yuyuda feels a wave of unease seeing her transformation. Before he can react, she's already on him, delivering strike after strike. He manages to evade most, but one sharp claw slices into his gut, sending him to his knees. Clutching his broken ribs, he looks up to see Karina charging at him again, ready to end it. In that moment, Yuyuda closes his eyes, preparing to finally be reunited with his wife, Grisella. But suddenly, little Ina steps in to save him. Seeing the girl, Karina halts her attack, though she refuses to back off. She insists that once a fire has been lit, it must run its full course. Just then a voice cuts in, saying he's ready to fight that fire. Curious, Karina turns and sees Yuma standing between Kana and Rakia. His father scolds him for being late, but Yuma apologizes, admitting that what matters is he still made it in time. Karina studies him and figures he must be the new hero. She laughs, telling him to prepare himself. With a deadly grin, she raises her sharp dragon claw, ready for battle. But before the clash begins, Yuma suddenly remembers his sacred sword. So he quickly apologizes to his opponent, asking her to wait while he retrieves it. Then he rushes to Kana, telling her they need to do the thing. Kana instantly flusters, embarrassed at the thought of doing it in front of everyone. But Yuma quickly spots an enclosed space and drags her inside, leaving Karina waiting outside, confused about what the heck is even happening. Now alone, Yuma begins the intense, plotful process of retrieving the sacred sword. As it builds toward the peak, light radiates from Kana's body. When the sword finally emerges, Yuuma seizes it, ready to face his opponent. With the sacred sword in hand, Yuuma vows to destroy Karina if she causes any more havoc. But his threat sounds more like a sweet melody, which makes Karina grin wide, declaring she's back in the mood and ready for action. When she mentions that his dad was just a treat, and she expects Yuuma to be better, sweat runs down Yuuma's face as he wonders what chance he has if even his father couldn't beat her. Karina wastes no time, unleashing her dagger-claw hands, freezing Yuuma in shock. As she strikes, he barely manages to use the sacred sword for defense. Annoyed, Karina unleashes a flurry of attacks, but somehow Yuuma deflects every blow with the sword. Eventually, Karina stops and asks why he's just standing there defending without fighting back. Yuuma replies that it's easy for her to say. To balance things out, Karina decides to give him one free swing. Seeing this rare chance, Yuuma is determined to make it count. He recalls the technique he used against Gradolio, leaps high into the air, and aims for one decisive strike to end it all. But when he lands, his blade has no effect. It's as useless as his face. Karina admits it only felt like a cool breeze and looks disappointed. Determined, Yuuma tries again, but Karina catches his blade in her grip. She asks if that's really the best he can do, then sighs that coming to Earth was a waste of time. Watching from the sidelines, Yuyuda can tell Yuuma is in serious trouble. He confesses to little Inna that, back in his prime, he had to combine the sacred sword with magic just to fight properly. But Yuuma has no magic at all. As Yuyuda speaks, Inna falls into deep thought. After thinking it over, Inna turns to Yuyuda and asks if Yuuma stands a chance of winning if he combines the sacred sword with the demon sword. The question catches Yuyuda off guard, but he admits that doing so would definitely improve Yuuma's chances. Since Inna is a demon, Yuyuda grabs her roughly, demanding to know where the demon sword is. But Inna refuses to say anything. Realizing he went too far, Yuyuda lets go and apologizes for being too violent. Meanwhile, back at the bathhouse, the girls are enjoying lunch when Maruran suddenly senses something. Alfina notices and asks what's wrong. Maruran replies that she can feel Karina's wavelength, and it's so strong, it feels like she's in full battle mode. Lilifi concludes that must mean Karina is fighting someone. Hearing this, Alfina bursts with anger, saying she can't just sit around and do nothing, and then pleads with Maruran to take her there. But in her fury, her huge cannons rip through her clothes and pop out to say hi. Alfina turns red with embarrassment, while Lilifi calmly points out that it must be because she's getting too thick, and then advises her to go on a diet. Back at the fight, Karina declares she's done playing with a weakling like Yuuma, and tells him to hand the sacred sword to his father instead. But Yuyuda immediately says he's not up for another round. Yuuma, however, grips the sword tightly and refuses to back down. Seeing the determination in his eyes, Karina smirks and asks him to prove he's a man. As the tension rises, Yuyuda calls out to his son and tells him to try summoning the demon's sword. Yuuma is stunned, realizing he had completely forgotten about it. Karina grins, saying if he has an ace up his sleeve, now's the time to play it. Yuuma hurriedly tries summoning the demon's sword, but nothing happens, just like before, and the failure only deepens Karina's confusion and frustration. Then out of nowhere, Reika appears behind Yuuma, looking dazed. She walks up to Yuuma and says the demon's sword is here. Everyone is stunned to realize Reika has been the demon's sword all along. But since there's no time to waste, Yuuma rushes forward, ready to pull it out of her with some intense melon massage, but Karina interrupts, telling the freak there's no need for that. Closing her eyes, she begins to emit a blinding aura, and in the blink of an eye, Karina herself transforms into the demon's sword. Everyone stands frozen, speechless at the sight. Yuuma picks up the demon's sword, then pairs it with the sacred sword. Karina, impressed, smiles wide and says everything that's happened has made her trip to Earth worth it. With both the demon's sword and the sacred sword in hand, Yuuma resolves that this time he has to win, no matter what. Will Yuuma be able to defeat the evil dragon girl? Comment demon and hero if you're hyped to see what happens next in part 2. If you enjoyed this video, drop a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching, as always.